Welcome back to my channel, where we discuss all the topics related to software development. Today's topic is about Kanban for software development. When you hear the word Kanban, you might think that it is a character from the latest Star Trek movie. But no, this is a Japanese word which means visual science or a card. And it is a methodology that is taking software development by storm. It is a fairly simple methodology that we are going to discuss today. Kanban got started in Toyota car manufacturing in Japan, that got popularized now in software development. Kanban is not just being used for manufacturing or software development these days. It's being used by various teams in various organizations for marketing, for HR, and other knowledge workers for managing their work and project related tasks. In this video, I'm going to cover the 4 principles and 6 practices of Kanban. But to begin with, what is Kanban? Kanban is a visual board where you put your work on. It can be a physical board, like on a wall, or a virtual one in an app, something like Jira or Trello. The form of Kanban can be simply just a board which has 3 columns: to do, in progress, done. It clearly shows all of the features that you still need to develop, all the features that are being developed, and those that have been already developed. Simple board, your stakeholders, the management, as soon as they walk into the office, they can look at the wall and see which features are still need to be developed, which ones have been developed. But as we look at the 4 principles and 6 practices, we will look at how to actually build your board that truly helps you manage your software project. Now, with keeping that concept of a simple Kanban board, a simple board with 3 columns in your mind, now let's look at the 4 principles so you can better understand this Kanban methodology. Principle 1. Start with what you know already. Kanban does not require you to overhaul all of your processes. It simply asks you to use your current processes, make them transparent, visualize them on your board, and make incremental improvement. So the first principle is we start with what we already know. Principle 2 is to agree on incremental improvements. We are not going to do drastic changes. We are not going to overhaul all of your processes. Let's start with what we have and then slowly do incremental processes. Make those subtle and small changes that in long run will completely transform your organization, your team, but no drastic changes. Simple, manageable changes. If you take an example of this from real life, if you look back at 1940s, when the Second World War ended, Japan had nothing left. All of its infrastructure was destroyed, all of its factories were destroyed. They started with what they had. And their philosophy was simple. We start with what we have, and every day and every week we bring one small improvement to our products, to our processes. And look at where Japan is today. That is the whole process here. We start with what we currently know, the way we are doing, and slowly we bring in changes, slow improvement. Every week, every day, we suggest new improvements, new experiments that we can do to improve our life and our product and the life of our customers. Principle number 4, respect your current processes, responsibilities, and roles. Basically, no drastic change in your organizational structure. It's not Scrum where we have new roles like Scrum Master and Product. We take your existing team, we take your existing organizational structure, and we start from principle number 4. Encourage act of leadership at all levels of the organization. We want to empower every single person within the organization to bring in those improvements. It shouldn't be the management telling us what improvement we need. We need everyone. We need those people that are writing the code to suggest us improvements to bring in. How we can make our software development faster. What best practices should we improve? Or how about we write this feature differently? What improvements would they have? So we want to empower everyone in our team. And to be honest with, that's what we want to do. All of us today as knowledge workers, we are experienced, we are expert in what we do. Then why not enable and use that knowledge? Now, we have covered the 4 principles. We will look at the 6 practices. At the end, when we have covered the 6 practices, you will get a better understanding of how Kanban works and what are the magical ingredients that make Kanban so powerful. Practice number 1, visualize your workflow. Basically, take your current software development process, your method, and visualize that on a board. So our board should represent how we work. So we take that simple board we were looking at before, to do, in progress, done. Now transform that to look at how your team works. So it's traditional waterfall styles similar to that. Then you might have a column to do, to design, in development, in testing, in UAT, release to production, or in test environment, in pre-prod, in production. And the magic of this is when anyone comes, any stakeholders, any manager, they can come in and they can see where that feature is. Let's say your CEO comes in and says, where is my shopping cart feature? You can look at it on the board and say, actually, it's in testing, or it hasn't been even designed. We haven't even started it. The main thing is that we want to visualize what we are working on, where everything is. We want to visualize all of our workflow, and we want to visualize all of our work as well in the workflow where it is. And you can use simple thing like a whiteboard or something like Jira or Trello. Practice number 2, and this is a really magical one. Practice number 2 is one that most people do not understand the power of this. Practice number 2 is limit the work in progress. And it is really powerful. This is one of the key ingredients, those magic of Kanban that would transform your team. There is a really exciting book I've recently read, and I will share the link of this in the description below. I recommend everyone to read it. And power of limiting the work in progress. Most people start to drain in work. They're trying to multitask. They're trying to keep everything in flow. Limit the work in progress. Focus on one thing, complete and finish that before starting something else. Also, limiting the work in progress, and Kanban is a flow system. It will highlight where the blockers are, where the bottlenecks are, and you can improve your overall system with this. With the power of practice number 1, visualize your work flow, and with limiting the work in progress, just using these 2 things, you will revolutionize all of your software development. You will realize what part of your team, of your processes are really slow and how you can improve them. So really, really important. These 2 things, practice number 1 and practice number 2, they are the magical 2 ingredients of Kanban. And unfortunately, these are the 2 practices. Especially number 2 is one that most teams overlook. Do not overlook this. This is a magical ingredient of Kanban. Practice number 3, manage the flow. Monitor and optimize the flow of items through your Kanban system. So basically, when someone picks up that feature, the one we were talking about before, shopping cart, and it gets designed, it gets developed, it gets testing, we want to optimize that flow of that feature development through our Kanban system, through our software development processes. We want to optimize, we want to visualize that, we want to monitor that, and we want to look at what is the part which takes the most time that is slowing us down, and we want to optimize those and make them faster, make them robust. If you're using the traditional waterfall style software development, and you might realize that testing right at the end is not the best way of doing this. By moving testing earlier on, you reduce so many bugs. Your product becomes a lot more robust. So you will only find that when you manage, when you look at your flow of items through your workflow, and you practice number 4, make your policies explicit. So everyone understands what your development policies are, what your development practices are. And if you are using a physical board, then you can put all of your definition of readies, your definition of turns, and the definition of what needs to be met before something can go from in development, in progress, into test. All of those things you need to highlight, and everyone in the team needs to understand that. In the olden days, when we had physical boards, we would make those policies, highlight them and write them on the board. These days it's virtual, but still make sure that they're documented on something like Confluence and everyone knows what those policies are and where they're set, and remind each other on your daily scrum, in your daily stand-up meeting, in your retros, in all of those things. That every single person in your team should know what those policies are and must follow them. Number 5, build in a feedback. On a regular basis, set up a feedback loop. Set up retros. See what is working, what can be improvement, what experiments did we do, which worked, which didn't work. Set up a feedback loop with your customers, what features they liked, which they didn't. Set up a feedback loop. And then based on that, do continuous improvements. Practice number 6, improve collaboratively and evolve experimentally. So basically, regularly run experiments and regularly as a team collaborate on what the experiments have worked, what improvements we have brought in, what does not work in our team. Build the feedback loop, build the retrospectives, and do continuous slow improvements. Do regular, incremental, small improvements. Unrelated to this is a book called Atomic Habits. One of the things it talks about is the British cycling team. And one thing they did, not Kanban, but they looked at small incremental improvements that they can bring in every single day to improve their performance. So from a team that had never won Tour de France, they won it 5 times in a row sort of thing. The power of small incremental improvements over time can compound into major, big changes and improvements. If you follow Kanban to truly, then in 5 years' time, you would not be able to recognize yourself as a team and as an organization. There is a true power and magic of doing continuous small improvements every single day, every single week, every single sprint. One of the questions I get asked most, what meetings do we have in Kanban? Especially from people who know Scrum framework, that is one question that comes to me. What meeting does Kanban dictate? And to be honest with you, Kanban framework does not dictate any meetings, but there are a few meetings that most teams do. One of the meetings I've seen every single Kanban team do is the daily stand-up meeting, where they look at the Kanban board and discuss what features, what user stories, what items they're worked on, what they're going to work on next. And they do this thing called walk the board, where they start from the right-hand side of the board and they walk towards left and see what stories, what tasks, what features are in each column and discuss what needs to be done to complete them. And they focus on the items that are closer to being finished before they pick up something that is on the left-hand side. The other meeting that most teams do is a replenishment meeting, where they look at the backlog and select what items are priority that they are going to be working on and bring into the Kanban board. They wouldn't have whole of the items that are part of the project there to do in list. They would have them in backlog, but they will do a regular meetings once a week, once a week, or maybe twice a week, or once every 2 weeks sort of thing, where they would take those items that are top of backlog and move it into the to-do column. And then they're already prioritized and they'll start working on those. The other meeting that all of the Kanban teams do is the retrospective. That the spirit of Kanban, of doing continuous improvement, continuously looking at your workflow, they put that into a retrospective meeting where they will look at the flow of the items in the Kanban board and see what improvements can be done. It's a meeting where they would discuss what experiments they can run for next week or maybe 2 weeks. They will discuss the feedback from the previous experiments they have run and agree if they want to continue or drop those and the learning from them. And there might be a few other meetings like risk review meetings that they would run at the project level. But Kanban is completely flexible on that. Now looking at the Kanban board specifically. So in Kanban board, the way we work is that we want to map out the flow of our software development process. So we might have to do in design, in development, in testing, in UAT, in each of those columns, we then have sub-columns. In progress, done. So in design heading, we will have another breakdown of that in progress, in done. And then in development, we will have another breakdown, which will say in progress, done. And the idea is that we implement WIP limits. So if the development has a WIP limit of 5, and design has WIP limit of 3, and testing have WIP limit of, let's say, 3. So Kanban is a pull system. So it means that when designers have designed the feature, they can't just push it over the fence to the developers. Developers will have to pull it. So when designers have done, they'll move it into the done section within the column, and then the developers will take that. When the developers are finished with their done, their feature, they'll move it into done inside the development subsection, and then the QA person will whoever's free, next they will pull. So it is a pull-based system rather than push-based system. And what it means is that, let's say QA has a WIP limit of 5, and they have 5 user stories or 5 items they are working on. So they cannot pick anything else. And developers have WIP limit of 5 as well. So which means they have already finished 5 items, which means they cannot bring anything else from that designers have completed into progress till something goes from their section into QA. So now we realize that we have a bottleneck. So this encourages team to be collaborative. It highlights where the bottlenecks are, but also means that developers can then go and help out the testers with testing, or they might go and help someone else within that team to work collaboratively. We want the smooth flow of items fast as possible across from development into done, from design to done. Kanban board by itself, the way we visualize with the WIP limits and with the pull system, this is the magic ingredients of Kanban, and that would revolutionize how we work, how the team collaborates. It forces the team to be more collaborative, it forces team to help each other out. There's a whole blog post about Kanban, and I'm going to leave the link below in the description. Also another blog post where I talk about the 10 books I recommend for anyone who wants to understand what Kanban is, who wants to manage the Kanban teams. And I'll leave the link below to them as well in my description. I will also leave a link to this book below in my description as well. So please do not forget to subscribe and like and share this video if you have enjoyed it. Until next time, thank you for watching and making it so far through this video.